Welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It is show number 122. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the program, and thank you for tuning in this morning. Show number 122, Education, Leadership, and Beyond. Happy to be a member of the Education Podcast Network. Happy to be going on Voice Ed Radio Canada, and happy to be here with you. Hope you are well. Well wishes during our time here, the coronavirus and being home and just turning the education world upside down. So thank you to Dr. Stevenson for tuning in. Today's guest coming on here in just a moment is Tom Rickard. Tom is the assistant principal at Minisink Valley Middle School in New York, and my former assistant principal at Port Jervis, where we grew very close. And Tom is also a head men's basketball coach at Suny Orange, which we're going to talk to him that he had kind of left that and came back to that. So excited to have Tom on today, carving out some time, his busy family, his busy schedule. And we're going to talk education, talk leadership, talk life, and excited about that. That being said, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you taking care of yourself? I want to give you two simple things today that you could do for yourself, things that you could do. They don't take a lot of time, but everyone's asking, right? Like, what are you doing? How are you adjusting? How are you doing this? It's important that you take care of yourself. It's important that you are exercising and getting yourself on a schedule. I've got a bunch of little kids at home. Tom's got more than me. You know, he's got 4 children, little ones at home, and it's important to create that time for yourself, to continue to develop yourself, sharpen your saw. And so 2 things. Number 1, I want you to get a notebook, right? Where's mine? It's right here. I want you to get a notebook, and I want you to call this number every day, 973-743-4690. 973-743-4690. This is my second notebook that I have. And Tom knows what this is. Dr. D knows what this is. But it's filled with information, and it's information from the Success Hotline. I've gotten to know Dr. Rob Gilbert now, thanks to Jared Kamar so many years ago. I don't know, 4 or 5 years I've been calling. And I got, again, 2 notebooks filled with just information here, tips, support, stories. Dr. Rob, Success Hotline, 973-743-4690. Who would have known that 3 minutes a day could change your life? So that is one thing I would challenge you to do. Get that notebook. Call each day. Call with your kids there. Call with your spouse. It has changed my life. Dr. Rob is fantastic, and I would encourage you to do the same. One of the things that Dr. Rob motivated me to do some years ago, I read this book, all right, and I'll hold this up there, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettker. I'm not a salesperson, nor is Tom Rickard. The first chapter, 30 days in a row. Sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy. Why would I do that? Why would I do it? Because that builds habits, right? It starts out as a thin string, and it gets stronger into a strong cord that builds habits. So I would challenge you to read this book 30 days in a row, the first chapter, and it's about energy and enthusiasm. How could you have energy and enthusiasm during this time? It's a rainy day here in the Northeast. It's kind of cold. You know, it brings you down. But when you get yourself up and you get that energy going, those are things that you can do to better yourself and those around you. So 2 small tips, 973-743-4690, Dr. Rob Gilbert, and read the first chapter of this book. You can get it very cheap on Amazon, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettker. Enough talking by me. Let's bring in Tom Rickard, my good friend here. He's coming on. And bam, there he is. Hey, Tom, welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to be with you. Good to see you. You look great. You look fantastic.
You know, I gained a few pounds since you saw me last, so I got to drop a few. But you mentioned Dr. Gilbert. So one thing that I took away from Dr. Gilbert, I called the show, and he has that great story about the lion in the jungle and the lion in the zoo. You know, which one would you rather be, or which one do you want to be? And that's the story I told my team this year. Do we want to be lions in the zoo, or do we want to be lions in the jungle? And the kids loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, so many great stories. And again, I encourage people to call. Just yesterday, he had the story of two twins. They were in ICU. The one was not doing well, and the other one was fine. It didn't look like the kid was going to make it. And the nurse, on her own, she said, "We got to do," and she put the other kid in the same, I don't know, basket, whatever, bassinet, and the healthy kid rolled over and put the arm on the kid that wasn't doing well. And that touch, that connection rose that kid up. And we're not able to touch and connect those that we work with, inspire now. But how can we do that as school leaders, right? And that was something I took away. But Tom, for those that don't know you, and so many in this area, and so many people watching live here now do know you, if you want to leave a question for Tom or I. But if the people that don't know you, Tom, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, short little bio on me. I pretty much have been a lifelong resident of Orange County. I mean, I was born in Queens, New York. My dad taught high school and coached high school basketball down there in Long Island, and I lived in Queens. We moved up here when I was in third grade and went to Middletown schools. Then I moved out to Otisville, where I live now, and I've been in Otisville now for over 30 years, and been a teacher, coach for over 20 now. So, I'm married, have four awesome kids under 9 years old. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah. The four kids. I'm getting a greater appreciation from my wife, Amy, being home every day with these kids.
Yeah. The ladies certainly taking care of that. But yeah, doing so much great work. Your father. We're going to talk a little bit about your father, and you're just your family. You got a wonderful family. You're blessed. But Tom, this year, you were at Minisink and you decided to get back into coaching. Right around this time last year, I saw the announcement come, like, whoa, tell me about that transition, about you going back to coach, where you coached before, where your dad coached, Suny Orange. Tell me about that.
So with the coaching, so I grew up around it. So my dad coached high school basketball. So ever since I was able to walk, I was going to basketball practices. And then he coached at he coached at Pine Bush High School as well, also up here in the late 70s, early 80s. And then he coached at Suny Orange for 25 years, and I was with him the whole time. Played for him, assistant coach. When he retired, I became the head coach at Orange. And I was the head coach for 7 years, and I loved it. And for those people who are in coaching, it's the connections you make with the players. And that's really it. And one of my proudest moments are when you make the connections and then you watch the kid, you practice, and then the game is like a teacher's assessment. That's my assessment, right? The game. And then when you see the plan and the hard work all pay off, it really is exciting for me. So I miss the connection with the kids, because then we started having a family, and we had kids. We have four in a very short amount of time. So I stepped away from the coaching to help with my wife, and then I just got the itch. I took 6 years off, and I just wanted to get back into it. I missed the competition. The Man in the Arena, if you ever read that, for Teddy Roosevelt, right? Like, that just really is one of my favorite passages, because I love being in the arena. I love the connections with the officials, with the other coaches, with the players. I like being in a gym where the fans are 10 feet away, and it's intensity. And I like the intensity. I miss the intensity. So that's why I wanted to get back in.
Yeah, that's a great story from Teddy Roosevelt, and I can sympathize and empathize with you. Was it different going back this time, 6 years later? What was different about it? What was different about you?
Yeah, well, you learn lessons. Every day you learn a new lesson, right? So when I went back into it, I had, me and my wife had great conversations about it, but I had to give up some control. And one of the things that it's good and bad, I guess, but the first time around as head coach, I did everything. I didn't want to leave anything up to my assistant coaches except coming to practice and helping in practice. So I was doing most of the recruiting. I was doing most of the scouting opponents, all the practice preparation. And I decided, and Amy also chimed in, like, I have to give some of that up. I have to delegate a little bit better. And that's what I did. And that's, I'm going to tie it into working at Port Jervis High School. You did a good job at delegating with myself, and with, Heidi Nyland, the other assistant principal. And that's one thing I learned. You have to delegate. You really do, because that would free up some time for me to stay emotionally healthy. And that was important too. So I gave up a little bit of that. And I have two great assistant coaches. They're phenomenal. Micah Brand, whose wife works in your school, and Jamal Ennis, who Jamal's been with me for a long time. they're terrific. So I trust them. I count on them now. I delegate. And then also I'm a little bit more flexible now. I think sometimes when I was a younger guy and a younger coach, and even a younger teacher, it was my way or the highway. And I think from reflection, and I think that's an important piece for teachers and coaches, reflect every day what you could do better. I think that was one thing. I think I'm a little more flexible now.
Great. That's awesome, Tom. Tom, tilt your screen down. You're a tall dude. You're like bouncing out of the top. No, the other way. There you go. Gotcha. There you go. So I could see you. And another thing that was different, you went back and you're now coaching on Paul Rickard Court. Yeah. They named the court after your dad and just was so great. I was reading something recently about, again, when I went to your dad's services and the priest was talking about the dash, right? Because those years now that ended his life were there, and what was in between. And he just did so many great things. What does it mean for you to be coaching on the court named after your dad?
It's an incredible feeling. And again, you know my dad pretty well, and the people who know me know my dad pretty well. He was the guy. He was just everything to me. So when all the way that I treat people and the way I try to treat people and the way I raise my family and the coaching is secondary, but just how to be a good person is what he did for me. And I'm one of 7 siblings. We had a big family, and I think every single one of my brothers and sisters would say my dad was a great role model. He did everything, and everything was for a purpose. He was a great teacher too. So he taught mathematics at the college too, college mathematics, and he coached there 25 years. So when they named the court after him, that kind of came up, and I wasn't really ready for it. It was brought to me, and I said, yeah, that would be great. So coaching on his court is an honor. It's nice to see too, like me back coaching all his former players that play for him come back to the games, and they look at the court, they point at the court, they smile. It just makes people happy, and we're certainly happy that it's named after him too.
Yeah, and I always enjoyed officiating his games. He was such a gentleman, and a little story about you, like you and I met through officiating, and I had a chance to officiate your games, and yeah, you were really into it and energetic, and sometimes that you and I that ended with some conflict on the court.
Yeah.
But I always, then when I got a chance to work with you, I always said, I got to see Tom Rickard in a very stressful coaching situation where then the next time I saw you after, the technical foul, you said, hey, Andrew, I want to apologize, right?
Yeah.
And it showed the human side. It showed the way you treated people, whereas some people like hold that grudge and they can't get past. They got a technical foul. Whereas you, next time, hey, Andrew, I just want to apologize. Boom, and we moved on, and you were, back to coaching. It was great, and
I don't understand.
That led. Go ahead.
I don't understand how coaches blackball officials. Listen, if I was blackballed every time I had a bad coaching game, I wouldn't be coaching. So I always feel like me and my father were a little bit different on this. He hardly ever complained about anything. I'm a little different. I do still complain, but like you said, you make your point and you move on. Like, you have to keep coaching your team. Tom Finan was a guy that who was a superintendent at Delaware Valley, and I was the first-year head coach, and he's officiating one of my games, and we're not playing well, and we're playing Westchester Community College, and they're always very good. And I was on Tom a little bit, and he finally came over and told me, said, Tom, stop complaining and coach your team. And it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I always remember that to this day. Coach your team. You can't spend too much time with the officials.
Tom, you mentioned Port Jervis, right? And one of the things you took away was delegating. You went back to Minisink, closer to home, the district you grew up in, and we've forgiven you. We love you. But what were some other things that you took back? We got to spend, I don't know how many years, 3 years, 4 years together. Yeah. What were some other things that you took back? Because you left as a teacher, and you came back as a seasoned administrator. What are some things that now are in your game as an administrator?
Working at Port Jervis was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. Port Jervis, if people don't know, is a very unique community. It has a lot of, it's actually very diverse socioeconomically. People say, well, it's low socioeconomic. Not, there are some low, there's some high socioeconomic, but it's diverse in actually families, how they were brought up. There are newer families coming into Port Jervis. So that was a very good experience for me, because coming from Minisink as a teacher, again, it was my way or the highway. And most of the time, that's just the way, that's what it was. Going to Port Jervis definitely opened my eyes a little bit, and you had to be more flexible. So at Port, it's busy. As a high school assistant principal, you are busy no matter what, whether it's Minisink, Port, Middletown, Newburgh, you're busy every single day. And one thing that I struggled with early was getting bogged down with the discipline. And you would come in the office and you saw me and you recognized that I was stressed out. Hey, listen, 80-20, bro. That's what you said to me, 80-20, bro. And that meant get out of your office. Go see the good things in the school. Go check out Mrs. Long's class, and you get in there and the music, and you go outside and you go watch the phys ed classes. So that's one thing I really took away. You don't get bogged down in the discipline. You have to go see the good things in the school. Another thing that I think is very important is that every morning you, me, and Heidi would greet the students walking in the front door. And that's one thing that I do now. Now it's a little different because I have to be on bus duty in the morning where I'm at. But every kid that walks off that bus, I say, good morning, how are you? And those little connections, I think, go a long way.
Yeah, there was good times, and then we learned a lot from you. And people watching live certainly could say hello to Tom and ask the question. Corey Ferguson watching here, and we appreciate that. Tom, in addition to taking things back from Port Jervis, what from your coaching life, those lessons in leadership, you played basketball your whole life, you're coaching your whole life. What are some things that you take from the court now and put into your leadership role as a school administrator?
And again, as you know, they're tied together. Athletics and coaching and teaching are very similar, and being an administrator. They really are. You can apply so many things from the classroom to the basketball court. So one of the things I always believed is the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I'm not sure exactly who that quote is from. It might be Thomas Jefferson. The harder you work, the luckier you get. When I was a graduate assistant at University of Buffalo back in the late 90s, that's a saying that the coach, that coach at that time would say. And I totally believe it. Not that you want to get lucky, but put the time in. Work really hard. And if you work hard as a student and you work hard as a teacher, you work hard as a coach, things are going to pay off. One quick story from coaching with my dad, and this is actually a funny story. We're playing a game. There's 4 seconds left in the game, and he would practice end of the game situations every day, right? How often, though, do you have an end of the game situation where you're down 1 or you're down 2 or tied? Very few times that comes up during the year, but we would practice it every single day. And we practiced one little simple play where our best player would come off a screen, get the ball, go down and shoot the ball. And I thought to myself, that is the worst play I have ever heard. That is never going to work. But we worked on it every single day. We're playing Rock and Community College. It comes up. He calls timeout. We're going to run the play. Former player who's a very successful business person now, Pat Schultz, gets the ball, takes 3 dribbles, shoots half court. It goes in. We win the game. And I'm thinking the whole time it's never going to go in. But every day we worked on that play and the execution. So I think the harder you work, the luckier you get sometimes, and that's a good example. And I really think you have to teach your players connections and extensions. So just like you're a teacher in a classroom, you have to teach the kids, how is this connecting to real life? How is it connecting to your life? And what is this going to help you do? So I remember at Port Jervis, we had I don't know if it was a faculty meeting or something, and there was a guy named Michael Jr. He was a comedian, and you would put up on the screen, know your why. Yeah. And I think if you can teach your kids basketball, well, why are we doing this? They're all teaching once. And the same thing in the classroom. Why are you doing this? How is this connecting to the student, and how are you extending it further in their life?
You had that faculty meeting too, where you got a standing ovation, Tom Rickard. Yeah, I remember that. Tom, you've had to put a number of years in as assistant principal, and then the natural progression, you have such leadership in all that you do is becoming a principal. Is that something that you're aspiring to do, and that it certainly seems like you're ready for?
Well, it comes up all the time, and the guy I work for now, Mike Larson, he's my principal over at Minisink. He's a great guy, very supportive. He's great. We've actually talked about that, and I don't think of it in those terms. Like, I don't think, I want to be a principal in 3 years, or I want to be an assistant superintendent. I just take it as it comes to me. I'm not about titles. I don't know if that makes sense. If it makes sense for me and my family, Sure, a principal probably one day would be good for me, assistant superintendent, whatever it might be. But I don't like to look too far down the road. And I remember from your office in the back above your desk, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? So I enjoy my job right now. I enjoy working with our faculty and kids. So who knows, what the future is going to bring. But yeah, eventually, who knows? Maybe I will welcome it and try for it.
Yeah. You're ready, and there's a ton of leadership there, and yeah, it's going to come to you. Tom, how about you yourself right now? You and I have talked a lot about physical fitness and the running, and how are you managing this now? I saw a couple kids coming off a screen in the background of your house there as they getting into the kitchen. But how are you taking care of yourself as a leader, as a father, and a husband now? What are you doing at home? What's your routine like?
So unfortunately, I don't think I have a routine because of all the 4 kids being here. But it's a juggling act, and I think one blessing that's come out of this craziness right now is that I get to spend more time with the family. So that I am just trying to focus on spending as much time as I can with the kids and my wife, Amy. One thing that we have started as a routine and I'm better at now is we pray at night. I know that might sound hokey to some people, but before bed now, we pray as a family. And that's important to us. And it wasn't happening during basketball season. It wasn't happening when I was, getting up a little bit earlier, coming into school. So that's one thing that we do. And I think that helps ground us and makes us feel like we're part of something bigger. And I think that's important for the kids to understand.
Yeah. And how about now? I know going to mass, like Easter Sunday's coming up here. Like, you're going to watch on TV? Like, what's your plan for your family here on, Easter?
Yeah, we watch on TV. One person that I enjoy and my wife enjoys listening to is a guy by the name of Bishop Robert Barron. He has a series called Word on Fire. He's a bishop out in California, and I think Los Angeles diocese possibly, but he's terrific. So we're going to probably watch him today, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then probably Easter Sunday. We'll probably tune into him.
Yeah. Tom, I mentioned to open the show about that book. Again, reading that first chapter for 30 days, the Success Hotline. What are some things that you do daily to take care of yourself, to better yourself? You got me going with Google. You got me going with some different podcasts. You introduced me to Joe Sanfilippo, your brother-in-law here. What are some things that that you are doing each day that might take a little time but have greater benefits?
I like to keep things simple. So again, if you know me, I'm a fairly relaxed person. I think sometimes we overthink things way too much. Keep things simple. Don't overthink it. What I do is I definitely check Twitter every day. I don't like to get bogged down in it, but I check Twitter every day. And like Joe Sanfilippo, like you said, is great. Jay Billy's great. There are some great guys out there that give tips, and I find that they're always valuable. And you get the information and you see what applies to your life and you go forward. But I think Twitter, I check it every day for little educational tips, whether it's and coaching tips too. I follow a lot of coaches. John Calipari's terrific. I get a lot of stuff from him. He has some wise things he says on there. But yeah, I just try to stay in touch through the Twitter world, and I think that's helpful too. Yeah.
Tom, we've had so many mentors. We spoke about your dad, right? As we were coming up, growing, getting older, and people that guided us, John Exanthus and John Bell and Tom Bon, people like that had great influences on us. And I feel like now that we're in these positions, you're a head coach, you're on your way to becoming a principal, that we're now having that the mentoring for others. Tell me about you taking on this role and who are some people, maybe, and you don't have to mention them, but about mentoring younger people now that are, whether they're beginning teachers or things like that, mentoring others and coaching others as they are starting to grow into different roles?
Well, I think the biggest, I enjoy mentoring. So I again, coaching and teaching and administrator, whoever is willing or able or wants to help, I'm very happy to give the help. I'm not sure what kind of help I can give. There are probably a lot more qualified people than me out there, but I think the big thing is you have to be supportive. I really think you're supportive. You have to accept failure. So when a lot of, when people, teachers or players or even fellow coaches, everything doesn't work perfect all the time, guys. You have to be able to take things in stride. accept failure, and then, of course, reflect on that failure and see how you can make it better. And I forget the exact quote too, but I've heard this from you where failures, every step back's an opportunity to step forward or something.
A setback is a setup for a comeback.
That's it. So, so mentoring kids, teachers, kids, whatever it is, you have to be supportive. That's the number one thing you have to do, is support them and be there for them. Again, even in a teacher situation as an assistant principal, the first thing that I try to do is say, how can I help? How can I help? I'm not going to chastise. I'm not going to say, well, you should have done that differently right away. It is, how can I help you? We're in this together and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's great advice. And another thing that I do daily is I read The Leadership Freak. I sign up for his blog. I love him. Dan Rockwell. Yeah. It's a great thing. And today's was, the 4 C's of accountability. You had talked when you first started coaching, it was my way or the highway. And now you're talking about support. And he says here, 4 C's of accountability: curiosity, connection, clarity, and contribution are ways to hold people accountable without creating stress. You have to hold your players accountable. You have to hold your teachers accountable. You have to hold your students and even parents accountable. Yeah. What would you say, Tom, your style is in accountability? I remember when we interviewed you, right? I said, what's your style? And you said, well, I don't really have a style, but it's to be authentic, right? I remember that you said that, and I always like that. But we have to hold people accountable in our roles, but we could do it in a certain way. Tell me about accountability in our work.
You have to have clear expectations. So you have to be very clear in what you want. Again, from players, from teachers, because if you're not clear, they're not going to know what to do. There's going to be questions. So being clear is super important for that. And you have to have high expectations, and they have to know you have high expectations. And I you hear all these quotes, right? So I think low expectations is a form of bigotry. I think say, well, that student is poor, he can't do it. That student is a minority, they can't do it. Well, all these reasons why you can't have high expectations, and it's just not true. I think you have to be really clear and have super high expectations, and then again, be there to support if they fall. So they have to know what you're telling them and know exactly what you want. And then you have to have high expectations. And if they don't meet those expectations right away, that's where the support comes in. But it's really, really important in my book to have these high expectations for your athletes, for your students, and for your teachers.
I love it, Tom. You're doing a great job. Tom, let's get to the rapid fire questions here. And we'll get this wrapped up. I know you have some things to take care of, and it's amazing how much time we have, but then how kind of busy we are in our home environment. So let's get to rapid fire, Tom. These are quick answers. The first thing that comes to you. Okay. The last book you read.
The last book. It's tough reading books nowadays, but I not too long ago read The Last Amateurs. John
Feinstein.
Yeah. And my son Thomas is reading it now. He loves it. Yeah.
Patriot League.
It's a great book. John, he just came out with a new book. I haven't got it yet though.
Yeah, he's great. You've been to a bunch of the Patriot games with me. I enjoyed that. Eric Hipsman is watching. He came to Army with us as well. So last movie you saw?
Just watched Rudy 2 nights ago with my son. Both my sons. And actually my daughter Catherine was there too. Love it. Every time I watch it, I take something else away from that movie. It's a tearjerker.
Yeah, you love Notre Dame. And we actually watched that with my family too. Yeah. And sneaking in the window, the thing. Yeah.
Well, it's the classic American story, right? Little guy makes good, right? So you can't do it, but through hard work, perseverance, he gets it done. So
yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Favorite place to travel besides Notre Dame?
That's a good one because I love we're going again this year. They better have a season. It's interesting. So the most favorite place I've ever traveled was Siena, Italy. Me and my wife went for our 10-year anniversary. She'd studied in Siena in college. Oh. And for 10 years, we went back and stayed with the family that she stayed with when she was there. Oh. So Siena is my favorite destination. But the favorite place on a day-to-day, I like going to New York City. I do. I like going down to New York. It's nicer on a Sunday when there's not as many people there and you can find a parking spot. But
yeah. We just lost all these closures. I was taking my wife next Sunday to Hamilton for our anniversary down there. It was on Sunday. Yeah, 3 o'clock show. Yeah. In Siena. Did you go to the horse race in Siena? Where they
the palio.
I don't know. I can't. Yeah.
But we went to where the not the square. I guess the square they call it. Yeah, the piazza. We went there where they had it, but it's an amazing place. Siena. If you have a chance to go, it's so laid back. Everyone's just relaxed. It's really nice.
And the church of the officials, right? The black and white stripes on the
Duomo.
Yeah,
great.
All right, Tom. You said you're very laid back. I've seen it, but what are some things that get under your skin? What's a pet peeve of Tom Rickard?
I tell you, I have a lot. My wife tells me I have a lot of them because I'm always saying to the kids, "Turn that light off, shut the door." So it's actually probably leaving lights on in rooms that no one's in and leaving the door open. Right? You probably. As a kid, my dad would say, "What do you live in a barn?" Shut the door.
Constantly, I'm quoting my dad all the time. Turning the lights off. And how about in coaching, Tom? You and I, again, officiating and coaching. What's something that when an official does, it just drives you bonkers?
I can't stand when it doesn't happen as much anymore, as you know. The officials are just compared now to what they were 20 years ago. It's different. But when the officials don't hustle. So they don't get, they're not hustling and they're not running. And it just drives me crazy when they make calls when they're not in good position because they're just not hustling. And it doesn't happen as much now. It used to happen often when the officials weren't in as good a shape. But that does drive me crazy where they're not in the right position because they're not hustling.
Yeah. And you're coaching at the junior college level. And I learned this really early on. And again, to respect people like you, they're coaching at that level. They're giving it everything they got. That game is as important to Tom Rickard as for Roy Williams at Carolina, and someone said, "Don't you ever take work less as hard at that game than you would at Syracuse for Jim Boeheim." Yeah, and someone said that to me once. A veteran official said, "Would you treat Jim Boeheim like you would you're going to talk to that coach who might be Tom Rickard or somebody at a community college?" And that hit home to me early on about never. Work less because you're working at a different level. Right. And, that must drive you crazy if they don't hustle.
Yeah. And from your point, exactly. Another lesson from my father was, and again, I tell this, my father, he might as well have been coaching in Madison Square Garden. That game meant so much to him. And you're selling your players short if you don't treat that game like you're playing in Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. My dad did every day. He coached his butt off every night. And hopefully I do the same because I don't want to sell my players short.
I know you love Notre Dame. Why Notre Dame, Tom? How'd you fall in love with Notre Dame?
I'm kind of a sap for history and tradition, So it's being a Catholic kid growing up, and I don't know why it was Notre Dame because we have no family history with Notre Dame, but I think it's just being a Catholic, and 1981 is kind of when I first remember following them, and they were pretty good in the early 80s. They won a national championship in the late 70s. They were good in the early 80s. So I love the history and tradition. And if you've never been to South Bend, you gotta go to the campus. When you walk on the campus, there's just a feeling that you don't feel anyplace else.
Yeah, love it, and good luck getting going. I know you've been traveling out there with your children. I would challenge you to go to a Notre Dame game on the road to a Big Ten stadium. I took my son this past year to the Big House, and it was cool. It was an interesting thing. So maybe hit a road game this year.
Yeah, they're playing at Pitt, so we might do that. So
okay, yeah, okay. Best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life.
Under $100, that's a great question. I don't know. You know what it is? I bet you it's Audible. You know what Audible is?
Oh yeah.
Audible, and it's great with the kids. So we download books, on tape, and we in the car we listen to it. Just the other day, they love it. Dad, can we put on Audible? And we put on Winnie the Pooh, and they loved it. So I would say Audible.
I just got Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers on Audible, so that's a great book. Something about Tom Rickard that people don't know about.
I'm pretty, what you see is what you get. I'm not the most exciting person probably in the world. I guess, it's an interesting story. So I spent the night in Hoboken train station I slept in the actual train station. We went to a NIT game in the Garden, drove to Hoboken, took the PATH train over, and then the car wouldn't start in Hoboken. So I slept in the train station. Because again, back then there's no cell phones. I had to wait the next morning till the garage was open, and then they had to fix the car.
Oh,
so
my God.
It wasn't the most pleasant evening. I had to sleep with one eye open, but that's all right.
I believe we all have a book in us, Tom. You have a ton of stories and actually shared some ideas about a book. But what would be the title of your book?
You know, it's funny you asked that question because I was talking to Amy about this a couple of weeks ago. And I believe in keeping things simple. So it might be something like get out of your own way. You know, keep things simple. Something like that. Just get out of your own way. Sometimes we overthink every decision, and it doesn't have to be overthunk. You have to just sometimes go with your gut. You got to go with your instincts. You have to be authentic and do things for the right reasons. I sometimes think we overthink it. We don't keep it simple. And sometimes we really think we're more important than we really are. Seriously.
Great points. Short-term goal, Tom Rickard, 3 to 5 months.
I just want, it's a good opportunity to spend more time with my family because during the season, you're never home, right? You know the life. So next 3 to 5 months, spend more time with the family, do as many things, go for walks, read books, do some projects around the house. I think that would be good.
Yeah, we've fallen in love with some board games. They're loving it, playing chess with my son and my daughters, and it's fun. How about a long-term goal, Tom, 3 to 5 years? 3 to 5? Professionally, I always want to be in a good spot. So as long as I'm healthy and enjoying what I am, I can see myself being in my position in 3 to 5 years. However, who knows? Maybe I'll be a principal one day of a school district. Yeah. Tom, you've done a great job today, sharing a lot of wisdom. You're on Twitter here at Tom_Rickard. Is there any way, people get in touch with you if they have questions about Suny Orange, questions about college basketball? How can people get in touch with you? I gave your Twitter. Is there any other way they can connect with you?
Twitter's probably the easiest way, but they certainly can email me. My email is TN as in Nicholas, C as in Catherine, Rickard, RICKARD @gmail.com.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to share, Tom, before we go?
I know you're into books, and I know you've written a book and you're writing another book, but I tell you, a book that I would recommend for anybody, coaching, personal life, is The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. That was something that I put on Audible and we listened to going out to Notre Dame last season, and it's just a great book. Any aspiring leader with a coaching principle, The Score Takes Care of Itself. Bill Walsh.
Love it. Tom, I'm going to bring the music back in here. You stay on the line so we can say goodbye. But this was Tom Rickard, everyone, middle school assistant principal. We're going to mute you, so we're going to jack this music up. I'm jacking this up right now. Sorry. There we go. All right, we are going to sign off here at Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving, episode number 122. This was Tom Rickard, everyone. Tom, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Reach out to him on Twitter. I am at AndrewMurata21. If I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, everyone.